Boop, there I am, bippity bop. Just making sure all these things are running because I'm doing something special. This is the I don't want the I don't want the logo. I don't want the logo. No logo. Interesting. Anyway, cool. So if you're watching this live, hello. Otherwise, this is the BTS version of Getting Shiggy With, my podcast that I use to talk about things and stuff because that's what I do. And hopefully this is recording on Audacity and then I'm gonna make it all sound sexy and stuff for the episode that's due to go out in uh an hour and a half, 2 hours. I think 2 hours. An hour and a half. So I'm gonna start do my usual something, some kind of intro thing, and go from there and pray to God that things don't break because if they do, I will not be a happy shiglet. So here we are once again in the world of podcasting. And it's a little bit different today because one, I'm sat down compared to last time where I was standing and weirdly made my brain pace way faster than I was anticipating and caused me to cut that episode short. I think it was about a 15-minute episode, which I think is a good thing for the first episode of 2021 amidst the craziness that we still have here in the UK. Apparently there's little bubbles around the world of normality. And no, we're still grounded, you know, for whatever reason other than the COVID numbers obviously going up. But yeah, it's a bit of a surreal place to be in. Just an FYI, this is also on YouTube now because I decided to get a little bit fancy. So if you want to see me do the double gun finger pose I just did, hop onto my YouTube channel. I think if you just search for Getting Shiggy With, it's the easiest way to find me, really. And yeah, you get to see me sat here in my living room. It's a little bit cold and I can't put the air heater on because that'll mess up the audio. So my toes are very, very cold. Anyway, in today's episode, I didn't think I'd have anything of interest to talk about, but thankfully, as life always seems to do, I, in fact, do have something to talk about today. Finally, I have some closure on my stepfather's passing. And it turns out he passed away in August last year. I only got a heads up of some description in November and only got, written confirmation 4 days ago. And that's January. So it kind of fueled a lot of curious emotions in my person. And if you don't know about it, because I probably haven't mentioned it, but if you've listened to every single episode, you might have heard me allude to it every now and then. But I am adopted on my father's side. And today's topic, the title that came to me whilst I was brushing my teeth this morning, a Stoic execution, is, I feel, very fitting to the thoughts and ideas that I've had for a very, very long time. And I feel is necessary to share, but I've always felt sharing these kinds of ideas makes me a selfish person. And thankfully, years and years and years of therapy has broken that narrative, which is why this podcast even exists. Because I know I'm not the only person who has these thoughts and ideas and, the cat is awake, thoughts and ideas and worries, I suppose. Because that's the major one that we always have is worrying that we might offend somebody. But if we have our own experiences and our own feelings, then why should someone else be offended of an experience that they haven't had unless maybe they've affected someone else and they feel guilty for the negative effects that their opinions and words have had on some other theoretical person who's not clearly part of the conversation. So if you can hear my cat drinking in the background, I apologize. I am in my living room. I've decided being in my bedroom didn't really work out so well due to too much noise from neighbors. And right now, in the back, there's a lot of DIY things going on. So we are in the living room, so you have to deal with my cat drinking water. And on occasion, he might go into his little poop cabin and have a poop. You won't hear that part. You just hear the aftermath of him scratching for England. So I apologize for that as well. But I digress. With being, I'm going to call it half adopted because obviously my mother's my biological mother, my father is not. And I like to just call it half adopted because it makes things simpler. Um, I never knew my biological father up until recently, but being born, there was no black father, as it were, in my life by proactive choice. I won't go into the details of the dynamics behind that because it's definitely not my place, especially as I don't really understand all of it, and I don't think I ever will because one part of that story is gone. um, so for whatever reason, my biological father was not part of my initial initiation into the world. I suppose he was part of the initial initiation. And from there, the only father I have known is my stepdad, and I've known him or known him since I was about 2 years old. So really had no comparison. But it didn't stop me being a little shithead going, "You're not my dad, you're not black." A little bit harsh, but it's also the truth. When you're a child, you don't understand that there's this need to perhaps choose different words to avoid embarrassment or shame. We are not shameful children. We learn it. We learn it. We learn social conditioning and skills to survive in the big bad world as we grow up. But little hard-headed me at the age of 2 was like, "You're not my dad. You're white." It was true, but my dad said, stepdad, but I'll call him dad as well. He told me and reminded me on multiple occasions that he fought tooth and nail for me, fought tooth and nail to adopt me. And in some ways, that's better than a biological father because he made the choice to be my dad, which is true. And my childhood was not a bad one. I think I've mentioned this in a previous episode. And I honestly can't be mad that much. Adults will be adults and they'll do what they do and they'll have affairs of which I will discover. And that will send me through all the introverted habits that children use as coping mechanisms when their parents do adult things that children are not required to understand and told to back off. And my childhood was pretty good, if I'm honest. I can definitely thank him for having a really good education. I can thank him for a semi-stable family life. I kind of say that, but also, we left him once, went to the States, came back. Hence my American accent. That's where that came from. I don't know why I'm putting on a weird Southern drawl there, but yeah, my little bit of Americanism comes from that teeny tiny time. I think it was about 10 months. I stayed in the States with my mum, and yeah, I'm briefly kind of skirting around this so you can kind of get an idea of where my head is at, because the main thing I want to talk about stems from this naturally. So, my dad was a very stoic, very reserved individual, and it kind of makes sense considering he was a Holocaust survivor. And when you go through all of that, and I've managed to pick up little stories here and there, and undoubtedly, when more and more people discover his passing, more stories will come up on the internet. He's been through a lot, and had his first wife, had 3 children, had his second wife, my mother, had another child. So I have a half brother, and got married again. But my mom kind of made sure he couldn't have more kids. No, that was a mutual decision. I'm sure of it. And yeah, up until probably the age of 11, 12, everything was more or less okay. Everything was kind of cool. And then, my dad decided he didn't want to be my mother anymore. Fair. Um, Kept the marriage though, which was unfair. Saw another lady. I discovered that. That all went to shit. That was not fun. That was not a fun period of my life. 2 years worth. Got carted away to boarding school in the middle of nowhere, UK. I lie, Harrogate in Yorkshire, darling. Um, and my dad still looked after my half brother in Kenya up until a certain point, and then my brother moved over to America, and I got told to butt out. It's not my concern, and I'm like, okay, cool. That's fine. My dad, this person who's fought so hard for me, um, tries to tell me that what I'm doing is none of his business. I'm like, you're bringing another woman into the family. Of course, it's not the first time he's done it. I'm hoping that the way he did it with my mom wasn't the way he did it, you know, to my mom, if that makes sense. And yeah, just effectively being shunned from any family things. I kind of contributed to it too, I suppose, because the energy that my mom had, the fire energy, I suppose, the chaotic bad with good intentions energy. When you're a child, you just try not to, I suppose, replicate, but whatever your survival techniques are, mine was replicating my mum's, so a little bit of a firehead. And talking to my dad, I suppose he just heard mum light half the time, which is why our conversations became far and few between. So effectively, I felt I was, well, I suppose I would say abandoned, because when I was at university, his initial thing was, no, you focus on your studies and I'll pay for it. I'm like, bet, okay, I can do that. Studying music technology at Brunel University. They wanted me to go to Oxford or Cambridge, and I'm like, I don't want to do that. So Brunel seemed to be good enough, especially as it was an engineering university, but I studied music there. Um, I don't think he understood that, because I was doing a BSc, so he assumes that doing a Bachelor of Science meant that I was doing engineering. Right? Okay, whatever. But it reached a point where he didn't want to support my university anymore. It's like, you have to get a job. Get a job, and your job will pay for university. And I'm like, bro, you don't understand how things work now. Like, things are expensive. Being able to pay for tuition and have a really decent job at the age of 18, when you're some little rugrat from Africa who's been stuck in boarding school in the middle of nowhere per your request, it's not that easy. Sorry, I need to wipe my nose. I'm going to be back. The live bit is going to see this, but the non-live bit is going to have this edited out. So, ha ha ha. Right. I need to blow my nose. I'll be back. And we're back. Okay, much better. And my hair's still pretty crazy. If it could just chill, that would be great. That'll do. That'll do. Where was I? So, trying to have a job at the same time as being at university is not, it's doable, but it's not like you're going to be able to pay university all the way, and have a full-time job at the same time. And he didn't really understand this, but he said, no, I'm not paying for university. You need to work, and study. So thankfully, due to slight technicalities of being Dutch, that's one of the good things that my dad and my mom agreed on, was me having a Dutch passport. That helped with the whole, being an EU citizen, and being able to get student loans and all that good stuff. And the relationship with my dad basically, fizzled and died. And I'm like, cool, bye. Eh, you're not my dad, but you provided for me, and I guess I'm thankful for that. But we've never really had a father-daughter relationship, and I can honestly say that now, because looking back on it, my mum was my dad. She took me to everything. She would mostly be there. when she could. Weirdly enough, my dad was always no, 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 no. There was a 50%, 50-50 fail rate for both of them not showing up to a lot of school events. Um, and I realized this could potentially all sound very bitter. I know already that the tone of this is quite solemn, but you're not gonna have happy joy shiggy all the time now, are you? And yeah, no, my parents didn't show up to my events that often. I'm just trying to think. I know with the plays they did. I know with the concerts they did, but they'd always be late. So they'd always end up, being at the back or something. There was one time I remember when I was playing in the orchestra and I was a cellist and I was number two, which is very rare. It's very rare to be a number two in the orchestra. Um, you had violin one, you had cello one. So I got to stand up and shake Mr. Morley's hand. He was the conductor and the music teacher at school. This is in Kenya, by the way. I know I'm darting all over the place. Um, but I remember one time, I think I saw my dad in the fourth row or something, and he's got the longest legs in the world. So he was in the aisle, middle, middle, middle section, and I couldn't see my mum, and someone else was sat next to him. And eventually, later on, I saw my mum right at the back filming with all the other late parents who'd come in, and they'd all just kind of rammed into the backspace, and that was funny. But yeah, for the most part, the father daughter relationship wasn't as healthy as one could expect it to be. I don't even know what that means and what that potentially looks like when you're a child and your father is over 50 years older than you, and the idea of taking her out to play tennis, or helping her refine her hockey skills, or getting her to ride a bike. My mom got me to ride my bike, with her busted ass knee, running around the tennis court with me trying not to completely kiss the very rough asphalt that we had on our rundown tennis court. Um, yeah, I'm just trying to create a shape, a landscape for you. I'm not trying to paint him as a bad person, but humans do human things, right? And my dad had obviously been through a lot. Wanted a nice calm life with a nice calm wife, but chose a fire breathing dragon and did his time. He tried 13 years. They got married as well, um, after my brother was born, and they tried. Good for them. And then it all went to shit because he decided to go and have another lady who was, I assume, calmer, but it turns out she wasn't. She was just as bad. But I can't go into that because it's not my place, and I still don't understand what happened. But um, it was not pretty, apparently. And yeah, so fast forwarding through university, I did my thing. I didn't finish university. Um, there was a few weird occasions where he'd pop into my life again. There was this one time when I was doing my usual, once a week Skype call with my mum, and she surprises me with my dad being in her apartment, and I'm just like, mm, "Hi, Dad. What's going on? This is what this is weird, you know." And that was kind of nice. It was nice to talk to him again, and he was super friendly. Didn't remember certain things, which was the beginning of it. When an older person starts having a little bit of dementia coming in, they can't remember certain things. Um, and that's a theme that happened all the way to the end. And yeah, after that, he had various kind of sickness scares and stuff, but ultimately he was fine. He's a very, 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 very resilient human being. I mean, if my siblings can even come up to being half of what that man is, that would be amazing. Um, because it's a weird theme that seems to be going through with all my older parent figures. Um, Resilience and tenacity and a stoic kind of outlook on everything, but you just keep on moving forwards. Um, And yeah, so that's the kind of picture that has been painted. I've painted, and going from that, um, over the last 2.5, maybe 3 years, my dad has been calling me, which weirded me out initially. And then I was just kind of like, okay, maybe he's trying to, rekindle a kind of daddy daughter something or other. Um, though he never remembered that I was his daughter, which was weird. Dementia. But the conversations were funny, amusing. Trying to get him to remember certain things, he didn't really remember much of them. He just asked me very matter of fact questions like, "Are you married? Do you have children?" I'm like, "No, no, and it's not on the agenda, Daddy." To which he laughed. He's like, "No, no, no. Come to Israel. We find you a good man. You can have a good husband. You'll have beautiful children." I'm like, "Wow." Still speaking for my uterus, but okay, yeah, no, let's go to Israel and we can find beautiful person. I wasn't gonna have that conversation with him. That might break his head. Um, and yeah, COVID happened. Fun, fun, fun. More conversations, more phone calls, more all of that good stuff. Oh, I did fail to mention, obviously, in this time, in the last 2.5, 3 years, my mother did do her whole dance. Um, and that was one of the times when he did a not FaceTime, Facebook Messenger video call. And that freaked me out because I'm like, whoa, what the fuck? Like how he's stepping up his game with this whole technology thing. And if you want a recap of all of that, go to episode 2 of this entire podcast show for a full hour where I go deep, deep, deep into the crusade, the maternal crusade. I think that's what I'm going to call it this year as I guest on other podcasts. Um, so yeah, kept on having these small little twee conversations, and I thought, maybe I was too harsh on the dude. Maybe he's cool. Maybe, maybe there is something there. Maybe he does remember that I am in fact his daughter, and we both went through a pretty shit moment, but ultimately maybe everything's cool. But the tail end of 2020, with COVID and everything, kind of had other ideas. I really, really did want to go visit him in Israel and hang out with him in person and just see what he's like, in his 90s. In his 90s. Um, and I hate the whole manana syndrome. I wish it would die a death. Like tomorrow, 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 another time. I just need to do this. I just need to do that. I'm really focusing on kind of squishing that because manana syndrome steals a lot from us because we always assume tomorrow's going to happen and then it doesn't, and then you're fucked up. And then you get stuck with the repercussions of manana syndrome, and I don't like it. Anyway, that's for another day. So I had mentally prepared myself for my dad's eventual passing. Mostly because, he's in his 90s. He's not going to keep on going, and his memory was fading, and, our entire saga had disappeared from his mind. So Lord knows what else has been going. So there's in Stoic philosophy, I think it was Seneca. I hope it was Seneca. I'm not going to go and ruffle through my books and try and find it, but the whole kind of overarching aspect of Stoicism is running yourself through as many scenarios as you can and being okay with them. I know people have different versions to that, but for me, what I've taken away from it is mentally preparing yourself for all the eventualities, the greatest ones, the ones that are so beyond this world that, you know, it's insane to even think about, but even the really, really, really horrible ones, the ones that would just make you sick to your stomach and would leave you confused and angry and alone and, all of that kind of stuff. And I did that with my dad passing. Um, and his will, because I had an old version of it that I got from my mum's place. There was this box of important things and my adoption papers, some birth certificates, and various other things were in there, and a copy of my dad's will, from our time, from our little saga. And I read it, and I'm like, okay, that would be cool. But also, that was a long time ago, and a lot has gone on since then. Since 1996, my parents' relationship very, very much got strained. So whatever's going on now, it could be a different story. I could be forgotten. I could be just removed from existence, and I need to be okay with that. So I did all of that, prepared myself for the best case scenario, worst case scenario, and everything in between. What I didn't bank on was my goddamn brother's situation. Again, not a place for me to put it in. If you know me personally, you know what the hell's going on right now, and it's stressing me the fuck out. But weirdly enough, with the new will that got sent to me, his position is so strange now, and I don't know what to do with it. That's as far as I'm gonna go. A mystery wrapped in an enigma, shoved in a box of what the fuck. Anyway, so I read the will, and yeah, I kind of wish I wasn't on it, really. Just kind of a very paltry right at the end, just before giving the biggest F you to my mother. Right at the end, to me, there's just a bit of a kind of a token hat tip to me, and I'm like, I could make that in 4 months, but okay, cool, thanks. That's cool. That's cool that like the thought was there, and I haven't let it happen, but I was annoyed. I'm not angry. I can't ever be angry. But certainly annoyed. Um, that's how much I meant to a person who apparently fought so hard for me and told me that being adopted has more benefits and is better than being biologically associated. And the 5-year-old child, or between 2 and 5, that child is having a massive hissy fit. And rightfully so. And going out for a walk or whatever is probably just going to be my way of managing that. um but ultimately, you know I really wish I wasn't in that will, because I still have to be in communication with my step siblings, and I really don't give a fuck about them. And being adopted, when you're an adopted adult to a family, a semi mostly dysfunctional family, it's stressful. When you have these weird familiar family duties that you have to do, but at the same time, you just don't want anything to do with them, especially when your final legal, not even biological, your final legal connection has now been terminated. And I know that's a cold hearted thing to say, but it's my show, so deal. Um, it's like, what? Why are you guys still bothering me? You guys have never called and said hi. How are you? You guys have never, when you're in the UK, ping me a message going, "Hey, let's go for a coffee." If I was in Israel, I would definitely send a very awkward message going, "Hey, I'm in your area. Do you fancy a coffee? I know it's been like 20 years, but hey, we're still legally siblings, so let's do a sibling thing." Meh, maybe that's just me. I enjoy being awkward sometimes. But yeah, right now, it's certainly a stoic execution, because I did mentally prepare for this. I did mentally prepare for a lower kind of regard to a relationship that lasted my entire life. But as a result from that, I spent a lot of time just being really, really super thankful for what I've had, because that man has spent a good 13 to 15 years, in my life, and an additional probably seven, 7 years on top of that, just supporting an entity that he carted off to somewhere in the middle of the UK. So yeah, I've had the best education that could be afforded to me. The ability to speak perfect English, even though I'm a Kenyan through and through, but I forgot my own damn language. And I think episode 7 might cover how that happened. Rather draconian, if I do say so myself. Um, and yeah, I got affection, I suppose, sometimes. By affection, I mean kind of like talking to my dad, forcing him to talk to me, and sitting in his lap, even though he didn't want me to, and falling asleep in his lap. And then my mom trying to wake me up, and he was like, no, 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 I'll take her to bed. So my, 60-year-old dad would like carry me, to bed. And that was me just manipulating some form of affection from this fucking human. But yeah, this episode is not going to be a huge 1 hour monologuing monster. I think I'm still easing into the world of podcasting again and trying to figure out a setup that works for me. But I did feel, kind of talking about this would be a good idea. Maybe there's other people out there who have also got a very, very weird setup where, you've got a side of your family that are biologically related to you for better or worse, but then you have a side of your family that are legally associated with you for better and worse and the rest. And you feel like you've taken crazy pills. And I just want to tell you, you have. It's not your fault. It's gonna happen. And just prepare yourself for all the eventualities. And just know that, at any point, especially when you're an adult, this is the really cool thing. When you're an adult, you can just let go of it all, right? And I know, the whole will thing, like if my dad wasn't who he was and he left the amount that he did, that would be a huge amount in certain other aspects. But in mine, it's not. And the disparity between my half brother and me and this his first children is just madness. It's absolute madness. And all I can do is just be bemused by it, slightly annoyed by it, but eventually this is the last kind of swan song. Once that's happened, I am cleaning my hands of everybody. And this is where an issue pops in. And it's something I've been fighting with, and I only noticed that I was fighting with it yesterday. Ooh, is that a truck? That's a truck. It is anger. And not anger from actions. It's anger from feeling like I constantly am abandoned by people who claim that they won't abandon me. And that's kind of cropping up. And I think I know how to work it. I think I know how to massage it into a place of love as opposed to a place of pure and total global destruction. But it's going to be tough. It's going to take a while. Just as, when my mother died, she didn't pass away. She shot herself. Um, from that point, there are still things that I'm managing now because it's still not that long ago. May 2019, even when we reach May 2020, that's only 2 years ago. And there's still a wake of BS behind that. And then I've got the double wake of my dad passing away, and then my uncle having a heart attack and having to go to open heart surgery. So it's just a wake of bullshit. And these angers that come up are going to have to be managed as delicately as possible. Um, but it's really important not to lose yourself. Trying to hide away from anger and hurt and trying to lock it away does more bad things than it does good, really. Trying to lock it away, especially if you recognize it as someone else's anger, as I recognize this as my mum, and feelings of entitlement. I don't want to lock that away for too long because I know it will come out somewhere else and it's very ugly. Um, but learning how to manage it is really, really important. So that's what I want to leave you with. It is really bright outside. If you watch this on YouTube, leave a comment. Let me know you've watched this whenever. It doesn't even matter if you've watched this live or if you watch this in a couple of days. It's been up. Whenever you hear it, whenever you see it, it'd be great. Same thing with the podcast. If you're on iTunes, leave me a comment. I read them. I pop into the show every now and then on iTunes and have a little noodle to see if anyone said anything. If you're on social media, I do the social medias. On Instagram, I am Elshig, ELSHIG. On Twitter, I am Elshig, ELSHIG. On TikTok, I'm only there for fun. I don't do any serious stuff on there. I just do stupid dances. Um, I am that one auntie because that's who I am. On Facebook, I'm Shiggimus, Shiggimus. That's M for mother, U for unicorn, and S for Sierra. Or just look for Shiggy Pactor because I'm on there. Super public profile. Where else? I'm on Snapchat, I suppose. I'm not really on Snapchat. Don't follow me there. But yeah, let me know how you found this. It's still a work in progress. Still a work in progress. But until then, look after yourself, look after everyone else as and when you can, because you can't pour from an empty cup. So definitely look after yourself first. Alrighty. Bye.